Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today I wanted to do a quick video showing how to get started using Fusion 360 for solid modeling and CAD work. So I'm going to assume that you've already downloaded, installed, and registered with Autodesk, and once you've done that, when you fire up Fusion 360 you should be presented with a view that looks something similar to this. So the first thing I always like to do is to start a folder or an area where I can save all of my files and assets associated with whatever project I'm doing. So to do this, Fusion 360 has this concept of a project, which is basically a container that you can use to hold all of your models and designs related to whatever you're working on. So in order to start a new project, if it's not already displayed, you can come up here to the top left and click on the Show Data panel. And what you're going to see here on the side popping up is a bunch of information which should be associated with your default account that you already made. So for example, the name of your account. You may already have a project container called admin project, which is sort of a default container. But what I want to do right now is start a new project. So I'm going to click on this new project button right here, and let's go ahead and name this Getting Started. Okay, and what it's going to do right now is going to build this container and actually upload this file structure and architecture actually up to the cloud. So this might be a great time to mention that Fusion 360 periodically uploads your information to the cloud and actually stores all of your information up there in the account that you created with Autodesk. So you may want to consider making sure that when you're using Fusion 360 that you have a nice stable internet connection, because I've tried to do this on the bus or on the ferry where my internet is a bit spotty and the experience is definitely not very smooth. Alright, so now that we've got our project set up, let's go ahead and make a file. So I'm going to come up here to the file and click on New Design. And you can see right here that we have a blank design. Now the first thing I always like to do is go ahead and save this immediately. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Save. And notice now that you're going to be allowed to call this something. Maybe let's call it, how about, widget. Okay, and then you can also pick a location. So I'm going to make sure that it's in my Getting Started project, and you can actually even create additional file structure within your project. So you can have multiple folders. So for example, let's go ahead and call this, how about my gadget. And within the gadget, we're going to make a widget. So I'm going to go ahead and click to create the folder. I'll double click on the folder. So now this widget is going to be saved within the Getting Started project and then within the My Gadget folder. So if I go ahead and click Save, here we go. We should see, here we go, we're on widget version 0. And if I come over here to the data panel, if I double click on the Getting Started project, you'll see here's my folder structure that I've created. Again, if I double click one more into my My Gadget folder, we see the widget file that we've created. So I think we are pretty much set with the file structure. So let's just go ahead and try to design our widget. Now the first thing I always like to do with a blank design is to make sure I've got the units set up properly. Units being, are we talking in inches, millimeters, things like that. So to set that, come over here to the document settings drop down, and then you can go ahead and change the units by just clicking on this change active units button. So right now, Fusion 360, I believe, defaults to millimeters, which is sensible, but since I'm in the United States, I would like this to actually measure everything in inches. So I'll just select inches, and in order to avoid me having to do this every time I start a new design, I'm going to check mark the set as default and then hit OK. Alright, and at this point, I think we're ready to start sketching. So to do that, sketching is really easy in Fusion 360. You just come up here to the Create Sketch button, click on that, and now you're going to have to specify what face or what plane do you want to sketch on. Since this is a pretty blank design right now, we only have these 3 faces. So I'll just click on this top face. And here we go. It snaps to a 2-dimensional view and we're ready to go ahead and start sketching. So you'll notice that the top ribbon changed because now we're in sketch mode and your options are slightly different. You can do things like create lines, create rectangles, circles, all these other kind of things. So we can, maybe let's create a simple rectangle. So you can click on this right away as one option to do this, but if you would like other ways to create rectangles, you can click on the create drop down, come down to rectangle and hover over, and you'll see you've got a couple of other ways to create a rectangle. So for example, I like this center rectangle. Let's go ahead and make a rectangle which is centered about the origin. So I'll click on this, and then I will go ahead and place the center of the origin of the rectangle by clicking on the origin, and then just dragging this to whatever size I'd like. So that's one way you can do that. Or also notice that the dimensions in those two boxes are, one of them is highlighted blue, so I can just type in, maybe I want this thing 2 inches high. I'll hit tab to go to the next one, and I'll specify maybe 4 inches. And then when I hit enter, that defines my two-dimensional sketch. So this seems pretty good to start. If I'm happy with the sketch, I can go ahead and click on Finish Sketch. And it snaps back to an isometric view, and we've got our two-dimensional sketch. Now also notice down here, you're going to start seeing what's called the design history. This is going to be a list, a chronological list of all the operations that you've done to create your part or your design. So right now we only have one. We've just gone ahead and made a single two-dimensional sketch. Well, I'd like to make this thing three-dimensional since I'm trying to make an object. So what I need to do is I need to extrude this two-dimensional object into 3 dimensions. So to do that, I can either click on the extrude button or I can use the press pull tool. Either one will work. Let's click on press pull, how about? This is now going to ask us to select something that we would like to press pull. Well, let's go ahead and extrude or press pull this rectangle we just made. So I'll go ahead and click on this. And again, we see a new dialog pop up, which gives us all the different options on how we want to do this press pull. So again, Fusion 360 is nice in the sense that I can either just click and drag on this arrow, and you can see that I can pull this in either direction, and it's going to make this three-dimensional body. Or again, I can just type in a number on the blue highlighted object, and it will go to that distance. And again, feel free to explore all of these different options. It's really quite versatile. You can do things like symmetric, extruded in both directions, just one direction, etc., etc. But I think that all of those options are probably outside the scope of this simple getting started tutorial, so we're going to go ahead and leave it like this. If you're happy with this, let's go ahead and click OK. And again, you notice here that you see the design history update showing that we've extruded that two-dimensional sketch we made earlier to make this three-dimensional body. So this looks great. Let's go ahead and save this at this point. So I'm going to hit save, and notice here that currently we are on widget version 1.0. When I hit save, and go ahead, you can type in a description if you like. I never really do, but if you hit OK, you're going to notice that it's actually uploading to the cloud right now your new design. So again, this is why you need a stable internet connection, and it revs this to now version 2. Okay, so this is awesome. Let's continue making improvements to our widget. All right, so let's pretend that we maybe want this to be like a tub or a box or something like that. So we want to basically hollow out a lot of this. So what we can do is we can, again, start sketching on one of these faces. Let's maybe sketch on this top face. I'll click on this and click on Create Sketch. And again, now we're going to start sketching on this top face. So to do this, you'll notice I kind of want to move this over. So if you need to move things in Fusion 360, you can just put anywhere and then click and hold down the middle mouse button and then just drag. And that will just translate or move this into a better location. Okay, so now that we've got this in a nice area we can see, let's go ahead and offset the walls. Let's try to make the walls a thickness of, I don't know, like 0.1 inches or something like that. So let's use a different tool here. Let's use the offset tool. I'm going to click on the offset tool, and then I'm going to click on one of these edges here. So this edge, it will intelligently pick this entire edge, and if I click on this, you're going to notice that it can go ahead and, you can type in 0.1, and it will draw a edge or a line that is offset from whatever contour that you selected. So you notice here in this case, it actually went in the wrong direction. I kind of want it going offset in the other direction. So instead of just positive 0.1, let's just change this to, how about negative 0.1? And there, that looks perfect. So if I go ahead and hit enter, you can see that we now have a second sketch, which is offset from this first edge by 0.1 inches. So this is perfect. Let's go ahead and click Finish Sketch. Okay, so we've got this other sketch, and now what I'd like to do is, again, let's do another press pull operation. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the press pull, and then I'll pick this face, which is this smaller rectangle on the top, If I click on this, we can again go ahead and we could either extrude this to make sort of this double box, or you can pull down and notice that it intelligently changes this from a extrude or a join to a cut operation because it knows that we're trying to dig down into this box. Okay, so again, what you can do is we could drag and just cut this all the way through, and that should be okay. So if I click on OK, we're going to go ahead and cut through the whole box. Now, if I want to, I kind of want to rotate this so I can look at it. So if you want to rotate in Fusion 360, you can hold down the Shift key and then click and press and hold the middle mouse button and then drag. And, oh, well, I guess we cut too far. So you notice here that we cut clean through the bottom of the box. So I want to maintain the bottom of the box. So what we can easily do, what's really nice about Fusion 360 is we can go back in our design history and modify any of these operations. So for example, this last extrude, which really was a cut, was too far. So let's right click on this and just say edit feature. And now what we can do is we can change this. So I think we said that this was 2 inches tall. Let's actually measure that, and I can show you another feature. I want to measure how tall this box is. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and click on Inspect, and if you just click on this edge, it will intelligently go ahead and tell you the length. So it says, oh yeah, that's actually 2 inches. So I'll go ahead and close that inspection, and now we know that since the box is 2 inches tall, when I edit this feature, I know that the distance I need to cut is not 2.9 inches, it's actually 1.9 inches. And if I hit OK, you're going to go ahead and see that if I look down here again, we see that yes, this is about right. We've got the proper dimensions. Now, that being said, I really don't like using this operation here where you kind of hard code in this magic number of minus minus 1.9 inches, because if we ended up changing the dimensions of this box, this might not be the right distance any longer. So a better way to do this is let's go ahead and actually, I'm going to go ahead and let's do this. Let's first delete this cut. Get back to here. So we still have our sketch up here, but what I want to do first is let's create what's called an offset plane. So I'm going to come here to the construct section, and I'm going to construct an offset plane. So what I need to do is I need to first pick the plane that I want to offset. So let's swing this down to the bottom of the box. I'll click on the bottom of the box, and then I'm going to pick a distance of 0.1 inches. And again, we notice that this went in the wrong direction. I actually want this to go into the box. So I'm going to go change this to minus 0.1. And you can see what we're doing here is we're making this plane which is basically parallel to the bottom of the box, but it's offset by 0.1 inches. So it's similar to that offset tool we used earlier in a two-dimensional sketch, but this is a three-dimensional sort of entity. I guess you can think about it that way. So if I click on OK, you're going to notice now that I have this imaginary sort of offset kind of construction plane that I can use for referencing. So now what we can do is we can use that sketch we made earlier, right, the one back here which was on top of the box, and we can use it and cut all the way down to this reference plane that we made. So what we want to do is, again, come in the press pull, and we're going to have to pick that sketch. Now, this is what's a little bit interesting. You'll notice that it doesn't look like I can select the sketch. I can select this entire face, but that's not what I want. I want that sketch that was hanging out down here, and I know it's sitting there. In fact, if I click on the sketch, you'll see its outline. You can even come here and right click on this and say edit sketch, and we see, yeah, it's right there. But for whatever reason, right now, it doesn't seem to allow me to pick it or choose it as a sketch that I can press pull. The reason that happens is, for whatever reason, you may want to come down here and look at your tree, and if I come here to sketches, you'll notice you have sketch 1 and sketch 2, which we had earlier, which are fully defined. However, notice that they've been sort of turned off. This eye icon is is grayed out. So this second sketch, sketch number 2, is the one that's on top of the box. That's the one I want. So I actually need to turn it back on. So I don't know why it got turned off, but sometimes that just happens. So I'm going to click on this eye icon, and there we go. It pops open. And now we can go ahead and press pull and click on the one that we want. So this worked great. So again, let's just go ahead and now let's cut all the way down. But again, instead of hard coding in this magic number of minus 1.9 inches, let's go ahead and say, instead of extruding or cutting through a blind distance, let's go to an object instead. And the object I want is this construction plane that we just created. So now if I click OK, look at that. It goes down and it does exactly what we want, right? And the reason why this is so darn helpful is because now we can modify some of these other older parameters or these older objects. So for example, let's go back to this first sketch, and maybe I don't want this thing so fat and so large. So instead of being 2 by 4, let's make this much smaller. How about just 1 inch by 1 inch. Enter. And then let's change this dimension to 2 inches, enter, and click Finish Sketch. And everything updated appropriately. And similarly, I can change this extrude. Instead of making this such a tall box, instead of 2 inches, I don't know, how about just 1 inch? And then hit enter. And everything still goes ahead and is still appropriate. So we still have a good looking box. This plane is kind of getting in the way of me seeing this. So maybe what I'll do is, let's see if I can just go ahead and say, I'll right click on that offset plane. I'll just say suppress feature. So now I don't see it. The problem is when you do that, it also suppresses sort of these children. So I guess I can't actually, that's not actually what I wanted to do. Let's come here to the construction plane, and I want to just not stare at it. So let's turn that off. There we go. And this looks pretty good. And in fact, if I want to go ahead and check this bottom thickness, this is another cool feature in Fusion 360. Let me go ahead and save this design first. Okay. And what you can do is, let's come here to the inspect, but instead of just measuring it, let's do a section analysis. And what this is going to allow us to do is, let's click on this plane, and we can now cut through this and see sort of a sectional analysis of the box. And you can see, yeah, this looks great. It looks like we've got a box where all the walls are 0.1 inches thick. So I'll go ahead and hit OK, and notice that the section analysis still is visible. So again, if you don't want to view the section analysis, come here to your tree, click on the analysis, and let's just turn the eyeball off on that section, that cross-sectional cut, and we're back to our nominal box. So again, let's hit save, and this is looking pretty awesome. Alright, so let's make this box, instead of this being just this boring, perfectly square box, let's give this like a stand or something like that. So what I'm going to do is, let's go ahead and create ourselves another one of these offset planes, but we'll offset it from the bottom, and let's just go ahead and drag this, I don't know, maybe I want to make the stand here. How about 3/4 of an, and let's make it 1 even inch just for fun. Okay, so I've got my offset plane down here, and what I'm going to do is, let's sketch on this plane. So I'll click on the plane, click sketch, and we're now sketching on that bottom plane. So it might not look that way, but again, if you go ahead and move this around a little, you will see that when we go ahead and start drawing on this, let's draw how about a line. Let's just draw. And you can start to click, and let's freehand some kind of cool shape. There, and you can see that we're clearly sketching on that plane, which is 1 inch below the bottom. So let's go ahead and click on Finish Sketch. And what I want to do is, you can see that our design history is getting a little bit long, so it might be a little bit hard to tell which all of these things are. So you can actually rename some of these if you like. So for example, I right-click on this offset plane, and I can rename this, and I'll call this bottom of foot. Okay, and what we can do now is, let me show you a pretty cool feature here in Fusion 360, is we can go ahead and let's create a loft that's going to go from this perfectly square bottom of the box down to this kind of cool looking foot shape. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and click on Create. Let's come here to Loft, and what we're going to do is, we're going to click on the bottom, and we're going to loft that all the way up to the top. And it's going to create, you can see, this kind of interesting lofted feature between those two sketches. So that looks awesome. Let's go ahead and click OK. And there we go. Now we've got this box that's standing on this kind of odd-shaped foot. And again, if we want to, we can come back to our sectional analysis and turn it back on, and we can kind of see what it looks like there. Okay. So, again, let's save this. And I'll show you another really interesting feature in Fusion 360, and that is going to help us create fillets on some of these sharp edges. So if you notice, some of these things are perfect 90-degree angles, and if we were to, say, 3D print this or to actually try to make this box, all these edges are going to be really, really sharp. So to smooth those out, let's click on the fillet tool, and what it's going to allow us to do is basically start selecting which edges we want to fillet. So let's just start with maybe all of these edges on the main box. So I'll just go ahead and quickly try to select all the edges on the box. I'll spin this around and I'll click on all of the appropriate edges, and I think that looks about right. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I've got all the edges. And then what I can do over here in the fillet tool is let's just change the radius to, I don't know, how about 0.08 or something like that. Oh, nope, can't do that. 0.08 is too big. How about 0.05? Nope, that's still too big. How about 0.03? Oh, it's not liking some of these down here. So tell you what, let's deselect some of these edges. Whoops, there we go. Shucks. I guess it didn't like that one edge. I think because of the odd geometry with the associated fillet there. So tell you what, let's just go ahead and use all the other edges. That's fine for our demonstration. So now that offending edge is gone, I think we can jack this up a little bit. 0.08. Sorry, I'm trying to type in 0.08. There we go. And you can kind of see what the fillet tool does. You see, it makes all those edges a bit smoother. So let's go ahead and hit OK on that. And now you see that we've got this nice smooth box, albeit except for this one offending edge, which I guess we can try to fillet this thing by itself. Let's see what would work. 0.02. Oh, that kind of worked. 0.03. No, I don't think I like that. Let's just go with 0.0. Yeah, let's go with 0.02. There we go. Okay, now all the top edges are filleted, albeit not all equally. But again, I think this goes to show some of the power and how easy it is to start sketching in Fusion 360 and to create some of these geometries. So again, let's hit save. So I think this is actually a great spot to leave it for this Introduction to Fusion 360 discussion. We'll have future videos on topics such as using Fusion 360 in a 3D printing workflow, joining multiple parts together, and using Fusion 360 to easily add male and female threads to a part. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and if so, I also hope you'll consider subscribing to the channel, because surprisingly, if you just scroll a little ways down and click on that subscribe button, it really does help me continue making these videos. With that being said, I hope to catch you at one of these future discussions. Bye.